everyone, welcome to our channel Easy BTech. This is Srijna. In the last session, I had discussed about exception handling topic. So, what is an exception? What are the types of errors? There are two types of errors: syntax error, runtime error. Syntax error, runtime error. After that, what is an exception? An unwanted and unexpected event that disturbs the normal flow of the program is called as an exception. Runtime errors is also called as exceptions. Okay. So what is exception handling? What is exception handling? So exception handling does not mean solve an exception. So solve an exception. Actually, we are providing an alternative way to an exception. That is nothing but exception handling. We have to define way to continue rest of the program normally. This way of defining alternative is nothing but exception handling. The main objective of exception handling. What is the main objective of exception handling? It is highly recommended to handle exception. The main objective of exception handling is graceful termination. That is nothing but normal termination. So, exception handling by using TryAcceptBlocker. So, I already told about this TryAcceptBlock with example code also. So, the next one, try with multiple except block. Try with multiple except block. This is also completed. So, if try with multiple except blocks available, then the order of these blocks is important. PVM will always consider from top to bottom until matched exception block is identified. So, I already told about this example also, like here. See here. So, x by 0, x by y means if it is x by 0, 5 by 0, everything. So 5 by 0, it will match 0 division error, arithmetic error also. So first of all, the first preference go for the 0 division error. Why? Because PVM will always consider from top to bottom. So if it is like this, arithmetic error, 0 division error, then the first priority goes to the arithmetic error. Okay. Why? Because PVM always checks from top to bottom approach. And so in previous session I completed up to this. Okay. So what is the next concept? Single except block that can handle multiple different exceptions. Single except block that can handle multiple different exceptions. If handle code is same for multiple exceptions, then instead of taking different except blocks, we can take single except block that can handle all those exceptions. Let's see the syntax of a single except block. Except, exception 1, exception 2, and so on. Either you have to write like this: except exception 1, exception 2, and so on as message. Here the parentheses are mandatory. So internally these exceptions are considered in tuple. Okay. So here parentheses are mandatory, and let's see an example program for single except block. Try x is equal to int of input of enter x value. Y is equal to int of input of enter y value. Okay. Print x by y. So it may raise a 0 division error or value error. 0 division error or value error also. Right. In except block, parentheses are mandatory. 0 division error or value error as message. you have to write as must be outside of the parentheses, not inside parentheses. Okay, let's print this message. Okay, execute this. X value 10, y value 2. There is no exception, so try block is executed successfully. If an exception came, it will enter into the except block. If there is no exception, try is executed. Okay, 10 by 0. What is an exception? Exception is 0 division exception. That is nothing but division by 0 is a message. For example, I am writing here TWO. Okay, so this is about value error. Invalid literals for integer with base 10 2. So here I am giving string value. Actually you have to give so integer value. Okay, this is an example program for single except block that can handle multiple different exceptions. Okay, then coming to the next concept, default except block. Default except block. We can use default except block to handle any type of exception. Any type of exceptions. In default except block, generally we can print exception information to the console. Okay, so default except block is nothing but these except block doesn't contain any error message. Okay, so try risky code except. We can use default except block to handle any type of exception. It can handle any type of exception. Either that is a 0 division error, either that is a value error, either that is a file not found error, etc. Whatever it may be, that way that except block will be executed. Okay, let's see here. If I am writing like this, please provide valid input. If it is a 0 division error, the except block is executed. If it is a value error, the except block is also executed. If I am matching, can I match it with the default except block with the normal except block? Normal except block is nothing but maybe single except block or error message contain except block, everything. So yes, we can combine. We can use 0 division exception or 0 division error. Print, I'm taking a message as m, print m. So if it is a 0 division exception, 0 division exception message block will be executed. 0 division except block will be executed. If it is a value error, then except block is executed. Let's see here. 10 0 division by 0 is a error. 10 2, please provide valid input. That is nothing but default except block. Okay, default except block. So let's see here. If default except block is defined, if we are defining a default except block in our programming, then compulsory it must be last except block. Otherwise we will get syntax error. Which error? Syntax error. If default except block is defined in our program, then compulsory it must be last except block. Otherwise we will get syntax error. This restriction is applicable for only default except block. These restriction can be applied for only default except block but not for normal except blocks. Normal except blocks can be in any order, either zero division error, value error, file not found error, or arithmetic error like this. Normal except blocks can be in any order, but default except block must and should you have to define default except block in last position only. Whenever I am giving default except block in first position, automatically it will generate a syntax error. See here, default except must be last. Default except must be last. Okay, this is about default except block. Default except block. Let's see here. Various possible combinations of except blocks. Various possible combinations of except blocks. These are the valid combinations. Except zero division error, value error, whatever it may be. So these are the valid combinations. Except zero division error. Either you have to take parentheses or not, it will valid. Either you have to take parentheses or not, it will be valid. Next, zero division error as message. Either you have to take parenthesis or not, it will also valid. Zero division error, value error, must and should you have to take parenthesis for single except block contains multiple errors. Okay. So next, zero division error, value error as message. Except these are the valid combinations of except block. Various possible combinations of except block. If except block is defined for only one exception, so if except block is defined for only one exception, then parentheses are optional. Like see here, first, second, third, fourth, only one exception. Okay, then parentheses are optional. If multiple exceptions are there, then parentheses are mandatory. See here in fifth, sixth, parentheses are mandatory. If we use parentheses, then must be outside of the parentheses only. If we are using parentheses, you can write as outside of the parentheses, not inside. Okay, outside of the parentheses. You have to follow these rules to declare except block. Okay, so what are the invalid combination? Various possibles of except blocks. What are the invalid combinations? As must be defined outside the parentheses, not inside the parentheses. So this combination is invalid. Zero division error, value error, must and should we have to put parentheses for multiple except block. Okay. Next, zero division error, value error, as must be write outside the parentheses. But here we can write inside the parentheses. That's why these three combinations are invalid combinations. Okay. Let's see next concept. Finally. So it is an interesting concept. See here. It is not recommended to clean up resource deallocation code like closing database connection. Cleanup code is nothing but closing database connections. So most important, finally block is most important. Let's see carefully. So it is not recommended to place cleanup code in try block. Why? Because there is no guarantee for execution. Yes, there is no guarantee for execution for every statement inside try block. Yes, it is not recommended to place cleanup code inside except block. Why? Because if there is no exception, then except block won't be executed. If there is an exception, then except block is executed. If there is no exception, so except block can't be executed. So there is no recommended to place cleanup code in try block as well as except block also. Hence, we required some place to maintain cleanup code. Which should be executed always irrespective of whether exception raised or not, irrespective whether exception raised or not, and whether exception handled or not. If it is exception raised or not, whether exception handled or not, that is not a matter. So such type of best plays nothing but finally block. Okay. Cleanup code activities like database connection code, we can't write database connection code inside try block, inside except block. Why? Because there is no chance to execute a try block try block statement. So there is no guarantee to execute try block statements, as well as there is no guarantee to execute except block statements. That way we can't write cleanup code activities in try block and except block. The main purpose of finally block is maintain cleanup code activity. Okay. So then what is the syntax of finally? Try, risky code, except handle code, finally cleanup code. Okay. The specialty of finally block is it will be executed always irrespective of whether exception raised or not, raised or not, and whether exception handled or not handled. Whatever it may be, the finally block is executed. Okay, let's execute this program. For example, try, I'm writing here. Let's simple example, just I'm printing. This is a try block. This is a try block. Except print. This is except block. Except block. Finally print finally block. There is no exception in try block. There is no exception in try block. Try block is executed. So then except block is not executed. Why? Because there is no exception in try block. Then automatically finally block is executed. So finally block is executed. So the answer is try finally block. Try finally block. Try finally block. See here. And what is the speciality of finally block? It will be executed always. It will be executed always whether the exception raised or not, whether the exception handled or not. Let's see here. First example. Exception not raised. Exception not raised. X is equal to int of input of enter x value, y is equal to int of input of enter y value. Here I am printing x by y. X by y. Except 0 division error as message. Just print message. Okay. So after that I am giving finally block. So the first example is exception not raised. Exception not raised. 10, 8. 1.25 is the answer. Finally block is executed. Finally block is executed. So it is executed whether the exception raised or not. Raised or not. So if the exception is raised, exception is raised. Okay. So if exception is raised when corresponding except block is matched. If the exception is raised when corresponding except block is also matched. Except block is also matched. Then zero division error is executed. So whether the exception raised or not, exception is raised whether the exception solved or not. So whatever it may be, finally block is executed. Here the except block is matched, corresponding except block is matched, so there is no problem. Program got normal termination, finally block is also executed. So 10 0. So division by 0, finally block is executed. So if exception is raised when corresponding except block is not matched, if not matched, if it is a value error, okay, the corresponding else block is not matched. So what will happen? Program got abnormal termination. Program got abnormal termination, but before that it will execute the finally block. Before that it will execute the finally block. Let's see here. See here. Okay. So program got abnormal termination. But before that, which block is executed? Finally block is executed. Okay. That's why we have to write cleanup code activities in finally block. Hence we are required to someplace maintain cleanup code activity which should be executed always irrespective of whether exception raised or not, whether exception handled or not. Such type of best place is nothing but finally block. So finally block. This is about finally block. So let's see here. Nested try except finally blocks. Nested try except finally blocks. So we can take try except finally blocks inside try or except or finally. So we can try except finally blocks inside try or except or finally. Hence nesting of try except finally blocks is possible. Generally risky code we have to take inside outer try block, and too much risky code we have to take inside inner try block. Inside inner try block, if an exception raised, then inner except block is responsible to handle. Inside inner block is an exception raised, then inner except block is responsible to handle. If it is unable to handle, then outer except block is responsible to handle. Okay. So actually too much risky code we can write too much risky code in inside try block. Nesting is possible for try except finally. Let's see here. So here try except finally. In try block contains try. So it is a outer try block, inner try block. Okay. Outer try block except block means inner try block except block and finally block. If an exception raised in entire outer except block, outer try block, automatically outer except block is executed. Outer except block is executed. If outer except block contains a try block, if a risky code contains an exception, in outer except block, an inner except block is there, that will be executed. Okay. So whatever it may be, the finally is also executed. Finally code is also executed. Let's see here. If the control is not entered into the try block, then corresponding finally block won't be executed. So if control not enter into the try block, then corresponding finally block won't be executed. Once control enter into the try block, compulsory the corresponding finally block will be executed. Let's see here. For example, I am writing here print 10 by 0. Let's see here. Actually 10 by 0 got an exception. So after that try block will came. the console not enter into the try block. So finally block is not also executed. Okay, so it is that if control is not entered into the try block, there is no chance to execute finally block. There is no chance to execute finally block. If control enter into the try block, compulsory the corresponding finally block will be executed. Okay. So up to this is exception handling. So in the next session, I will continue on nested try except finally block with example programs. Okay. If you have any doubts, please post on comment section. So watch our videos regularly. Thanks for watching.